I don't know anybody else's, but okay. Well,
yes. Okay.
Okay. So we're continuing in the laws of Muktzeh. And the classes this week, sponsored by Neil Tobias in memory of Shafia Bat Zakia, and by my father in memory of my grandfather Joseph Beyda Alav Shalom. So we've been talking about the laws of Muktzeh. Primarily, the first 2 days we talked about the basic category, which is Kli Shemelachto Le'isur, which is a utensil whose primary purpose is to do something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. That is something that's forbidden to raise, to move, and so on and so forth. So the classic example that we talked about was a pen, right? A pen, a hammer, a screwdriver. Now we're going to talk about a second category, which is not called Kli Shemelachto Le'isur. It's rather something that's Muktzeh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. It's Muktzeh, it's set aside because of loss to the pocket, literally is what the terms mean, meaning that it's something that we're careful to use only for its specific purpose, and that specific purpose is a non-Shabbat purpose. So let's talk about examples. So he says, Kol davar shomed l'shimush asur b'Shabbat. Anything that is its purpose, it's there for using in a way that's forbidden on Shabbat. So that was like Kli Shemelachto Le'isur, but now we extend. Uba'alav, and the owner of the object, makpid alav shelo yipagem v'lo yitkalkel. They're exacting, they're careful to not have that object get damaged or destroyed in any way. Kegon, so he gives an interesting example. Sakin milah, the knife that they use specifically for the Brit Milah. So Morris Abraham's knife, right? It's a special knife. It's only used for the Brit Milah. Or shechita, or a knife that's used just for shechita. These are not necessarily super expensive items, but they're items that are they're one purpose use. You wouldn't use them for anything else. You wouldn't want them to get damaged. Also, miklat radio, some kind of radio recorder. So something that records on the radio. Matzlema, a camera. Ushar machshirim adinim, any other devices that are very delicate or sensitive. These objects, they are set aside. They are called Muktzeh Mahmat Chisaron Kis. You're not allowed to raise them and lift them up. Now here is where it's different than everything that we've been saying beforehand. These objects, even what we call letzorech gufo or letzorech mekomo, which means I need the object not for the forbidden purpose, but just for the body of the object, right? So what would that mean? As we've said, to use it as a doorstop, a back scratcher, a paperweight, a bookmark, right? Those are all permissible purposes. There's nothing, I could use my phone as a bookmark. I could stick it in the place where I want it. No, because this is a new category. Right, Muktzeh Mahmat Chisaron Kis is more stringent than what we've been talking about before, which is Kli Shemelachto Le'isur. So if an object fits into this category, you can't use the leniencies that we used in the previous category, which were Muktzeh Mahmat Chisaron Kis, which was Letzorech Gufo, right? We're using it for the object's body, for its weight, for its ability to do something else, or Letzorech Mekomo, or for its place. Right, meaning it's on the table, it's on the shelf, it's on my bed, it's at somewhere where I want to use that place, so I'm going to move it. Doesn't work, right? So whereas if I left my screwdriver on my dining room table and I now want to eat on the dining room table, I could just pick it up and move it. If I left my laptop there, if I left my cell phone there, if I left my my shechita knife there or my camera there, now I have a different problem, and it's not so easy to move it. And I can't just say, oh, I need the place, so now I can move it. That only applied on the previous type of items, but not this type of items. This is a big difference that between the two categories. Yeah, good? Great. Okay, so now what are some other things that go into this? So he says, cheshbonot u'michtavim meshariyim, chekim, shtarot kesef, neirot erech, o kol mesmach echad she'adam makpid l'shomro, וכן כרטיסיה של האוטובוס וכדומה, כל אלו בכלל מוקצה מחמת חיסרון כיס הם ואסור לטלטלם. He says, so contracts, documents, partnership agreements, checks, money orders, any kind of business agreements that we have between one another, cash, even a Metro card or something like that, all that he puts in the category of things that people are particular about using, and that they wouldn't use for other things, right? So it's an interesting one. I wonder if a Metro card fits into that category, but I could see why, it definitely makes sense, because you don't want to use the Metro card for other things, because then when you need it for what you want to use it for, which is to ride the bus or to ride the train, you don't have it, and it's gone, it's damaged, it's lost. So perhaps people are particular about that. We could argue on that one, but basically, my checkbook, my cash, my credit cards all fit under this category, right? These are things that people are particularly careful about. They protect them. They put them away somewhere in a safe or something like that when they're not using them. So therefore, they fit into this category. Okay. Now he brings a case that I think has happened to all of us, right? He says, Shabbat, well, actually, not exactly. Sorry, I missed 1 second. He says this is the reverse. He says someone who leaves his house on Saturday in the afternoon, and he's going to the kotel. So he wants to take the bus card, in his pocket, right, so that he could not have to walk home from the kotel on Saturday night. Asur la lasot ken. He can't do that. Since it's forbidden to carry this object, because it's Muktzeh the Metro card, because it's Muktzeh and also there's another problem with this, which is you can't be preparing for Shabbat you can't be preparing for the weekday. Sorry, you can't be preparing for the weekday from Shabbat. Right? So since we can't do that, so that's a problem. Okay, he says kelim hamiyuchadim lesechora umakpid alehem shelo lishtamesh bahem kedei shelo yikalkelu dinam kimuktzeh machmat chisaron kis aval im enam makpid alehem av shem yuchadim lesechora v'netanam ba'otzar mutar leteltelam. He says, let's say you have merchandise. Right? If you have merchandise that you would be careful not to play around with, right? So let's say you wouldn't let your children play around with the merchandise you have because, you want to sell it. He says, then that becomes Muktzeh, right? So let's say, IG, you have scarves, right? And you sell the scarves, right? And you don't want your kids playing with the scarves because, you want to sell it. And once someone starts using the scarf, right, then it might get dirty, it might get stained, and you can't sell it, right, and then no good, right? So it says if that's the case, even though the object is the scarf, right, you're allowed to use a scarf on that, it becomes Muktzeh. So we have to be careful about our inventory, our samples, our business items, if that's how we treat them, which. Most of the things that we consider merchandise inventory, that is how we treat it, right? We wouldn't let people just handle it unless they're handling it for business purposes. So then that becomes Muktzeh as well. Yeah? Okay. Timarim, ushkedim, ushar ochlim. He says, what about fruit, right? Like dates and almonds and things like that. It says, even if they're merchandise, you could eat it on Shabbat. All fruit that is not connected to a tree, or growing in the ground on Shabbat, any fruit is not Muktzeh. It's all considered usable, touchable, and so on and so forth. He says, when is this the case? If the food is there for eating. But if he said if it's food that's not for eating, says, for example, an etrog, right? An etrog could be there for merchandise, right? I was happy to see Boaz just a little while ago praying in the 7 o'clock minyan, right? So Boaz has his etrogim, right? And each etrog is a fruit, it's a food, right? But each etrog $20, $30, $40, $50, $70, right? Each etrog is expensive, right? He says those etrogim, those are not allowed to be touched on Shabbat because those etrogim are merchandise. Those cannot be touched or used, and you would not be able to lift them up, right? So if Boaz needed to get the etrogim and move them into a cabinet or something like that, he would not be able to. So that's why we would have to put them away from before Shabbat. He says, interestingly, he says another item. He says, "V'chen matzat mitzvah be'erev Pesach shechal liyot b'Shabbat asur letaltela kedin muktzeh machmat chisaron kis." He says, so too, when Pesach falls on Saturday night, right, the matzah becomes muktzeh. He says because it's set aside for after Shabbat, not on Shabbat, and therefore you can't really use it on Shabbat, and you would be careful of that. You wouldn't use that matzah on Shabbat, and so therefore the matzah has to be set aside and in a place that you're not going to use it on. You're not going to touch it, move it, or anything like that on Shabbat. Okay. Next, what time we got? Good. Oh, we got enough time here. יש אומרים שחפצי אדם חפצי בית יקרים וחשובים, שמקפיד עליהם שלא לטלטלם מחשש שמא ייפגמו, יתקלקלו וקובר להם מקום מיוחד שיהיו מוכנים שם כגון תמונות אמנותיות הקבועות בקיר, הרי הם בכלל מוקצה מחמת חיסרון כיס ואסור לטלטלם. Because some people say, if you have expensive items in your house, then those items might be muktzeh. Right, and so what am I talking about? An expensive item like artwork, right? If I have a certain painting that's hanging on the wall, right, and Avi, I don't know, the painting behind you, I don't know if that's like just a picture. It's not that expensive. Okay, right. I mean, if it comes from Walmart, or whatever, BJ's or Target, so then that's not what I'm talking about. But some people have real expensive artwork on their walls, and we be very careful about that. Then that artwork becomes like merchandise. And that artwork could theoretically be, and I think would in actuality be muktzeh, and we would therefore not play with that, not take it off the wall to show it to somebody or something like that. So that would be something that would be meant. So it says you wouldn't take it. And now, what about if it's not on the wall, right? Like what if it's leaning against something? What if it's not a picture, right? What if it's a sculpture or something like that? Same would apply, right? So we wouldn't be handling these types of things because these are they're not to be touched. They're merchandise. They're investments. They're things that we don't touch, and therefore, since they have this monetary conception of what they're about, then we can't touch them. So that's something that probably most people are not familiar with, and that they would need to be careful about is to be careful with artwork and expensive antiques and things that we have that are there as investments just for show. Those things should not be raised or moved or anything like that. He says, "Luchot lahazkarat meshiv haruach tal matar yalev yavo v'chadome hatlim v'ate knesset enam muktzim mutar l'taltalam keman shosim l'tlotam or horidam k'fei hatzorech v'lo muktzim l'da'atam mehem." He says any kind of, like religious artwork that's used to give a particular message, right? Like in shuls in Israel, you'll see, and sometimes around here also, you'll see there's like a sign on the wall that says, do we say Mashiv Haruach or Morid Hatal? Or there's the Modim de Rabbanan, or things like that, the Kohanim, things like that. Those are not a problem. You no issue about that. Kli gadol v'kaved harbe. Afal pi she'eno derech letaltelo klam mepnei godlo v'kovdo. Mekom hakom mutar letaltelo b'Shabbat kasher kelim hametaltelim lo netbatel mimenu shem kli. He says, things that we don't move just because they're large, that doesn't matter. That if you could get 2 people or 4 people or 6 people, you could still move the object. It's not muktzeh. It says, "Aval kli shemakpid l'shtamesh b'mkomo ve'eno metaltelo makom lakom kedei shelo yitkalkel al yedei tiltul asur l'taltelo b'Shabbat harei hu b'chlal muktzeh machmat chisaron kis aval mutar l'shtamesh bo b'mkomo." He says, but if it's something that, again, you're careful not to move from place to place because it might get damaged, then you can't move it, but you could use it in the place that it's in. I'm trying to think of what might be something that fits into this category. He doesn't really give any examples, But what might it be? Nothing jumping to mind. Sorry, but okay. Muktzeh מחמת חיסרון כיס, שיחדו מבעוד יום לשימוש קבוע המותר בשבת, מותר לטלטלו בשבת כדין כלי שמחתו להיתר, ודי ליחדו מבעוד יום במחשבה. He says, let's say you have one of these objects that you have in mind to use for an allowable purpose on Shabbat. He says, if you set it aside for that purpose, you can. That's okay, right? So let's say you have a shechita knife, we just said, right, that you can't use, right, because it's made for shechita, which you can't do on Shabbat. It says, but even though it's a shechita knife, that's what it's for, that's what it's made for, that's what you used it for last week. It says, but this Shabbat, you want to use the shechita knife for something that's permissible. What could be permissible? I want to use it as a doorstop, a paperweight. I want to use it to be my pointer for the Sefer Torah this week, right? If from before Shabbat, I say, this is what it's for, and that's what I'm going to be using it for, and I'm only going to be using it for that purpose on Shabbat, now I could use it for that purpose on Shabbat. I've dedicated it for that purpose. So in other words, the way I think can change my mind on that, right? So I guess the same thing might be true about my my Metro card, right? If I need a bookmark, and I say, my Metro card is not for use on Shabbat, it's for my bookmark on Shabbat, I theoretically could use my Metro card, not theoretically, I could actually use my Metro card as a bookmark, and that's it. I can't use it for other things, right? And I can't pull, I don't know, he doesn't say it here, but I would say, I wouldn't be able to pull the trick, of, well, I'm saying I'm using it for a bookmark, and then I'm going to use it for something else. I wouldn't use that one here. Okay. Muktzeh מחמת חיסרון כיס שנשבר בשבת, ושוב אין בעליו מקפיד שלא להשתמש בו כל שימוש אחר, מקום אסור לטלטלו בו ביום. He says, let's say I have, I don't know, my cell phone, right? And my cell phone is used only for the purposes that are what it's for, which are forbidden on Shabbat. And now what happens? Something happens to it. It breaks. It doesn't have any charge to it. It's no longer usable as a cell phone, right? Can I use it on Shabbat as to prop the window open, as a doorstop, as a, I don't know, a back scratcher? And our answer is no. Not if that happened on Shabbat. If it happened before Shabbat, and I knew from before, so if I have a broken phone, right, and I say I want to use the broken phone as a bookstop, a bookmark, or a doorstop, or something like that, then if I did it from before Shabbat, I could do that. But if it was fine before Shabbat and now it's broken on Shabbat, I can't do it. With all of this, I'd say we have to be careful. We have to be careful because people are going to watch what we're doing, and we don't want to send the wrong message, especially since these are areas that people are not so educated in. They don't all know the things. So we don't want them seeing us holding a cell phone or something like that. So therefore, I would say, even though there's ways that some of this can be done, by and large, we're going to say we're not going to do that because we don't want to give people the wrong message. We don't want to teach people the wrong things. So that's the concept of Muktzeh מחמת חיסרון כיס, which is the second category. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a new category called Muktzeh מחמת גופו, right? Which is an object which is Muktzeh and therefore may not be raised because of itself, because it's a nothing, right? And we'll explain this further tomorrow, but basically an object that's a nothing is considered Muktzeh as well, because for something to be usable on Shabbat, it needed to be kind of in that status and set aside for permissible use from the outset of Shabbat. If that wasn't the case, which we're going to see in a lot of examples, it's not the case, therefore it may not be used. So we're going to stop here for today. Today's class, again, by Neil in memory of Shafia Batzakia, and also by my dad in memory of Joseph Beyda Alav Shalom. Question is,